Thank you. Well, just by way of beginning, most of my background has been in active transportation. Throughout my career, I've been a transportation planner, working mostly in bicycle planning and pedestrian planning. That's morphed into street design. I've known Wendy for many years through this field. And the things that attracted me to active transportation, safety issues, environmental issues, equity issues, and more, are drawing me to autonomous vehicles because I think the potential to address many of these issues is enormous. There have been many innovations that have come along in transportation that some thought were big game changers, and I said, no, it's really part of an overall mix that we need to be thinking about. But autonomous vehicles are the biggest game changer I've seen yet. And I'm going to try to refrain from repeating some of the points that have been made earlier. I really agreed with very much of what was said earlier, but this idea that we have the possibility to really bring about great changes that can solve so many of our problems, our transportation problems, environmental problems, again, equity issues and safety and so many things is there. At the same time, if we don't adopt the right policies, we will end up with this auto dystopia. So just to reiterate that. Now, again, with the time frame, I've seen widely varying estimates as to when. The most pessimistic estimates are 40 years or so. But I do believe that in the next 5 years, we're going to see some self-driven cars on the road. I do believe that in 10 to 15 years, I don't want to say a number, but there will be a significant number of self-driven vehicles on the road. And this is something that we do need to prepare for as planners. And as John mentioned, the economics is really what's going to drive this to a large degree, because the economics will be such that it will make it so that it doesn't make sense to own your own car for many people, particularly in urban areas early on. So many potential benefits for the users. So mobility for people that don't drive, I think, is really a great thing for those that are too old or have disabilities or too young. As mentioned earlier, better use of our time, less stress. We can do deliveries. We can select the appropriate vehicle for the trip that we need to take. A lot of safety benefits. Just fewer crashes. 40,000 people per year got killed last year. And so I think we can do a lot to benefit that. And that's going to help walking and bicycling. I've got a few animations here I'd like to show. Some of the research coming out of UC Berkeley says that because autonomous vehicles can space themselves closer together, capacity on our streets and freeways may roughly double. So just to show, a freeway today and what that might look like with autonomous vehicles, the potential for fitting many more cars on the road is really great. Or repurposing some of those lanes would be another way to use the extra space. This enables us to, again, with roughly double the capacity of our streets. It means less congestion, but it also means more opportunities for what in my field we call road diets, where we can reduce the number of travel lanes out there and repurpose the space. So there's a lot of exciting possibilities I think we'll see with road diets. And when we plan road diets, we usually say that at about 20,000 vehicles per day, we can come down from a 4-lane street to a 2-lane street with a center turn lane and really not lose capacity. So this might bump that up to about 40,000. Think of how many more streets we could repurpose and do something better with the streets. And I'll show a little animation on this that had done. This is at Wilshire Boulevard in LA, how we might be able to kind of redo our streets and sort of recapture our streets as public space and start to use that public space to higher and better uses and to make our streets more lively and more vibrant and better places to be. This is just one kind of vision. There are many different possibilities that we could go with this. And just to show some more of the technological possibilities, I think we could optimize traffic flow in different ways. It might be that we could eliminate traffic signals and our intersections could become more like virtual roundabouts. Or with computerized central control, we could maximize the flow of travel. If one street is starting to congest, direct the flow to a parallel street, for example. And then this is one of my favorites. This is a concept that I've been promoting. I call it lane clearance for priority vehicles. What if we have a priority vehicle like a bus or an emergency vehicle that instead of having a full-time dedicated lane, when the bus is coming along, the cars get out of the way, and when the buses pass, the cars can go back and use, the other cars can go back and use that lane. So it's like I said, a full-time dedicated lane. It's like virtual infrastructure, which I think could go a long ways in improving transit. A lot of transit benefits. The first is that when we take 54% of the cost out of transit, the driver, hypothetically, we could operate twice as many buses for the same operating cost. So reducing headway significantly, or operating on more streets, operating in many more neighborhoods, or lowering fares. There's a lot of things. And with our transit, feeder service to train stations or other stations, increased service, faster service, and new viable ride-sharing services. I think that, again, getting to transit is going to be important, but we're going to see the definition of transit change. The two-person lift line, the four-person vehicle, the six-person van, the 12, this is a 12-passenger vehicle that's actually not much larger than a regular car, but the 12-passenger, the 18-passenger. There are many trips that we make today that don't lend themselves well to fixed-route transit, but could lend themselves quite well to a 4, an 8, or a 12-passenger bus. And the technology learns over time. This is all computerized. It's computerized transportation, such that when that lift line learns that there is a route where they can pick up 6 people and kind of get a regular patronage of 6 people on that line, it can run that more often and learn where the demand is and more precisely react to the demand. If we've got reliable lane clearance, how about high-speed buses? Why not allow them to go 100, 120, 150 miles an hour on our freeways if the other vehicles can get out of the way? We will have to build new buses. Greyhound buses today can go about 105 at tops, but, you know, develop some new technology where we've got high-speed buses that, you know, think about our freeway network as being a transit network where you can get around the Bay Area and maybe every 3 miles or so there's a stop and you get off and there's local rapid service, there's local bus service, there's Lyft and Uber waiting for you and bike share waiting for you at each one of those stops. At transfer points, at freeway interchanges where you could get on another transit bus. Or what about long distance bus? You know, how about between the Bay Area and LA? You know, make it three-hour trip, 3.5-hour trip. Right now, Greyhound does it for about $35. It takes something like 11 hours, 10 or 11 hours. But again, take the driver out of the equation, and the cost of that will go down to $15 or $20. And at that cost, why not have like first-class airplane seating where you can recline and sleep along the way, or, you know, have some, you know, relaxing, have some refreshments and other things along the way. And then when you get to LA, you're met with a high-speed regional transit network on the freeways down there that will more seamlessly take you closer to your destination where you can get off on another type of transit. Enhanced detection of bicycles and pedestrians. Again, this is my primary field that I've been working in. And autonomous vehicles with the redundant technology of LiDAR, radar, cameras, and so forth are trained to pick up bicycles and pedestrians. But there will be circumstances where it may be difficult. They're less predictable than other vehicles. And so why not add another level of detectability? So for example, I've got something that I use here called PedSafe. This is a free download that when you're crossing the street, if you want, you can make this blink. So you're telling the motor vehicles, I'm crossing the street, don't hit me here. But we could have maybe a small transmitter that goes on the bicycle frame that tells the vehicles it's another type of redundant communications technology that speaks to the cars and says, I'm here, or for a pedestrian that needs to cross the street to be able to say, I'm here, don't hit me. One of the challenges we have in pedestrian planning is planning safe crossings of arterial streets between traffic signals. So this might be a way of providing that. Greater use of electric vehicles, this is something that probably should be mandated. As said earlier, it doesn't happen automatically, but there tends to be a trend. There is a trend in this direction. We mentioned job loss. I won't go over that a lot, but I think that is the biggest unavoidable negative impact, and I do think we need to prepare for that. We need to start thinking about that in advance. How are we going to retrain these people? What kind of jobs will there be? Personally, I'm hoping it's in a green economy, but something we need to be thinking about. Again, the potential to induce travel is really, really high because we've reduced the time, the value of our time in traveling. So there's a lot of potential, inducement of travel. Now, there's something I'm calling the politics of algorithms. Whenever we do something with the computer or at an intersection, or we decide that we're going to say, for example, with the enhanced detection of the pedestrians, I'm going to cross the street here. Do the cars stop immediately? Do they wait 10 seconds? Do they wait 5 minutes? Whenever we computerize traffic signals, there are algorithms that go into that. And those algorithms, how we set them, who we give priority to, will be very political decisions. And there will be a board, I don't know whether it's the Marin County Transportation Algorithm Board or who it's going to be, but maybe it's a city level board that's going to be making these algorithm decisions. And to close with policies, again, I think Lauren hit on a lot of the really key ones, and John did as well, so I won't repeat too much of that. But to me, a lot of the most important thing we need to be thinking about are the pricing strategies and the time advantages. Because if we kind of let the free market determine and we don't put in good policies that encourage sharing of rides, as again Lauren pointed out, that's the key. How much are we going to share rides? And how much of it will be individual trips? To the degree that we decide we're going to not regulate pricing and not get into the business of giving time advantages to shared rides, that's when we're going to end up with more congestion and more greenhouse gases and a lot more problems. And in today's environment, we could solve congestion today if we could price streets and freeways the way we'd like to, many of us would like to, but politically it's very difficult. And there's a crowd out there that says, you're social engineering, telling me how to get around. Well, if that sort of wild, wild west crowd wins the day, we will have the auto-oriented dystopia. And so I'm hoping that we can kind of get over that mentality and say, look, we all benefit, including the wild individual who needs to be on his or her own everywhere, will hope that other people are in shared rides. So, and just basically for local planning, just a couple considerations. Again, I would not be investing in new parking spaces right now, and I wouldn't be investing in widening streets or freeways or roads right now. It's just not a good thing to think about. But some of the more immediate things are really kind of your regulations relating to taxis and Uber and Lyft and the like. And so with that, I'm going to open it up for discussion.